Clay's Corner, Russell Wilson trade review. I'm Russell Clay. I'm a staff writer over at fantasyguru.com, and today we're going to be looking at the Russell Wilson trade and how that impacts the landscape for fantasy, both for the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks. Tons to get into, tons of dynasty, 2022 best ball, and other good stuff like that. So going to be a great episode. If you guys find anything valuable in this episode, I'd really appreciate a like and also a subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 200 subscribers. With that, let's jump into it. Holy hell, what a day yesterday was, or I guess 2 days ago at this point. Russell Wilson traded to the Denver Broncos. I figure we can kind of get into this, so let's look at it. These are my dynasty ratings. I did a dynasty rating update on Tuesday. So let's think about this. Let's look through these, and we can kind of go through some of the players that were affected by this trade. A lot of stuff happened on Tuesday. Number one, Wilson went to the Denver Broncos. While I do understand going from Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy is honestly arguably a trade down for Wilson, the overall situation is much better. The Broncos have a really good offensive structure around them, and I do like this a lot. And I think it's a signal that Wilson's going to be around for a while. So I bumped him back up. I really do think he's going to have a great 2022 season. If Tom Brady is worth, what is Tom Brady worth in a super flex league, the past couple years, then what is Wilson? So I bumped him back up to basically the elite tier. We got Matthew Stafford. I just bumped him up a few points just because I do think he'll be around quite a bit longer. And then Rodgers, we got some clarification on what's going on there. Obviously that's going to hurt Jordan Love. And then Mitch Trubisky here from unranked to, probably could have some super flex value the next couple years. So I think we have to adjust to that accordingly. Javante Williams, I do think we should give him a slight bump. And also A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, just slight bumps here and there. The production with and without Rodgers was going to be a huge difference, so I do think we can bump those guys, even though I was pretty high on Dillon to begin with. And then we get to DK Metcalf, 93 to 85. Still love Metcalf, think he's a great player, and pretty much regardless of the offenses he's in, he's going to produce. However, without Russell Wilson, who's pretty accurate on those deep passes, and same thing with Tyler Lockett, I'm going to have to bump him down. Tyler Lockett, especially with his age, I don't think his dynasty value is going to recover from this. Even if he does perform next year, he's getting older, and without the elite quarterback next to him, I just think we're going to see a tamp down of that. And then, finally, Noah Fant, 83 to 81, going to Seattle. Doesn't seem like he's going to get a much better or worse QB situation. Might have Drew Lock for a little while. But ultimately, I fancy a nice young tight end, and I think he has some pretty decent potential. This is the one. I think this is the biggest winner of the entire thing. Albert Okwuegbunam. They were kind of starting him. Let's actually take a look at him first. So let's take a look at these game logs from 2021. Look at this. So to begin the year, he was getting 40% of the snaps. Then he got hurt, didn't play, and then came back, and he was basically a 50% player with Noah Fant there. So that's something I think we really need to value. Albert O is just an unbelievable athlete and had a great receiving profile out of Missouri. A guy I was very high on, has incredible size-adjusted athleticism. And, he dropped to the 4th round of the NFL draft, which was kind of confusing to me. But I think what we're seeing here is that the Broncos see something. They wouldn't just play their 4th round tight end when they have a 1st round tight end in Noah Fant unless they thought they had something. And it's not like Alberto is a blocker. They were using him as a receiver. He was getting a lot of receptions and targets on an offense that didn't have a lot to go around. So think about that. Think about Alberto, a guy that will probably see a strong price increase, but I doubt he'll see this big of a price increase. So I'm buying high on Alberto. I do think with Wilson. While Wilson hasn't used tight ends in his career, Jimmy Graham did have a 10-touchdown season with him years ago. So something to think about. I already talked about Wilson, but again, he's done nothing but be a very good fantasy quarterback the last half decade to a decade. And I think he will continue to do that. I think he's going to be in an offense that will open it up more than he's ever had in his career prior. So at least as a passer, I think we're going to get a really good season out of him. Cortland Sutton, this is a tough one. This is where we got to put our thinking cap on. 2nd round pick, has had some really good years. I mean, he had that one good year, and, his rookie year, 700 yards is pretty good as well. So, Cortland Sutton, nice deep threat, and I could see him really thriving with Russell Wilson. Maybe not as many targets. He could fit into that 100 to 120 target range, but I think we could see him get into that rookie year yards per reception with how accurate Wilson is as a deep passer. So Cortland Sutton, a guy I'm going to be taking in best ball drafts, as well as his pal Jerry Jeudy. Obviously a disappointing sophomore season, had that ankle injury basically the first game of the year and came back and just was not the Jerry Jeudy I know. Loved his profile out of Alabama. I thought he was going to be a stud, all around, great everywhere. I know Broncos fans bring up the fact that he's dropped a bunch of passes in his first couple years. However, I think we're going to see a nice rebound, get into that 1,000 receiving yard range. The problem is, I don't know if we're going to get the discount I want. So right now, I'm probably going to be drafting him at value in best ball drafts. Dynasty, probably not going to be able to scrape him away from his owners at this point. So just 22 years old, though will be entering his age 23 season. Very, very talented prospect that I like. Speaking of talented, Javante Williams, whether or not Melvin Gordon is back in the lineup, I think we're going to see Williams really turn into a special running back. He had a very nice, draft season last year, 2nd round pick, 35th overall, 1,219 yards from scrimmage in year 1, and was very efficient in doing so. So I think we should value that accordingly. He's going to be probably a 1st round fantasy pick, and I certainly don't hate on that. I think that's a viable value. I'm not going to be all in on him as a late 1st round fantasy pick in 2021 or 2022, but I certainly see the logic, and I won't be avoiding him either. So he's in that gray area for me right now. We'll have to see how his value develops over the next couple months. As I mentioned, I really like Noah Fant. I think he's a really talented guy. Has put together some good years for a tight end with very, very horrid circumstances. Obviously, that may not get better in Seattle in 2022, but he's a guy where, if anything does change in his situation for the better, I could see this guy getting, 1,000 receiving yards in his career. I could see him putting up multiple 1,000 receiving yard seasons. He has that type of talent. He's that type of freak athlete. He was a 1st round pick. He's been basically a featured weapon in this Broncos offense for all 3 years of his career. We know what Noah Fant is. If he gets better quarterback play, I do think he'll flourish with Seattle. It's going to be tough sledding. This kind of ends Gerald Everett for me, who was a guy who signed with them last year. I don't know what his deal is. I guess we should look at that. Spotrac. Let's take a look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Where's Gerald Everett? Spotrac always takes so long. Well, here you go. Never mind. Oh, here we go. Okay. Gerald Everett. This is a great resource, by the way, for those looking for contract information or figuring out what the composition of teams will be. Gerald Everett. Okay, so he only signed a 1-year deal, so he's probably going to be gone from Seattle this year anyway, so I guess that doesn't necessarily spell the end for him. Glad I fact-checked myself. Shout out to you, Russ. Good job. So yeah, Noah Fant. Really like him. Will be a featured weapon in that offense, and, even if he gets mediocre quarterback play, I think he'll be a top 12 tight end in 2022. And then lastly, Drew Lock. I mean, he was a part of that trade. I do think he's an NFL caliber quarterback, but he's just not a guy where you're going to be building around him. Big arm, makes some nice throws here and there, but is very erratic. In terms of super flex, I didn't really bump him in the dynasty ratings rankings, because, long term, I don't think this changes much for him, but, I could see a 2022 season where he starts 10 plus games. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. I thank you guys for tuning in. If you found anything valuable about this video, please give the video a like, and also feel free to subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 200 subscribers. I'd really love that. As always, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time.